Imagine the instant when your consciousness is freed from the body, crossing the border from the known into the great mystery of existence. But what if that moment didn't happen as it should? What if something interrupted your journey to the other side? For many, death is just the end of a cycle, a sigh that dissolves into the universe. But deep secrets surround this process, and the way we say goodbye to our bodies can influence the fate of our souls. Edgar Cayce, in his mediumistic communications, revealed that the spirit does not immediately detach itself from matter, and certain practices can have a profound impact on this transition. But is cremation one of these practices? By reducing a body to ashes, are we speeding up a process that should be gradual? Edgar Cayce taught us that the soul carries with it energetic ties that bind it to the body, even after death. In some of his psychographies, spirits reported feelings of disturbance when their physical body was cremated before an adequate time of disconnection. According to him, some souls need a transition period to understand their new condition and move on in peace. So what happens when this separation is forced? Are these souls trapped between two worlds, feeling the impact of cremation as an abrupt and painful break? Now, the question that can't be ignored: if you had to choose how your farewell would be said, what would you take into consideration? This isn't just a spiritual debate. It's a reflection on our relationship with life and what happens afterwards. It's not about fear, it's about understanding. That's why I invite you to follow me to the end of this video. We need to talk about a topic that can transform the way we see existence. Comment below. Do you believe that cremation can affect the journey of the soul? Your opinion is fundamental to enriching this discussion. Imagine that. When you take your last breath, you wake up on a different plane, in a new state of consciousness, but you still feel a strange connection with the world you left behind. What if that connection was abruptly severed? If the fire consumed not only your body, but the bridge that was supposed to allow a smooth passage to the next journey? This is one of the mysteries surrounding cremation. Could this process alter the soul's route and interfere with its transition to the other side? Edgar Cayce, in his mediumistic communications, reported cases of spirits who found themselves disoriented after death, still attached to the matter they once inhabited. According to him, some consciousnesses need time to accept the change and detach completely. But what happens when this time is denied? Could cremation accelerate this break in a painful way, leaving the soul in a state of turmoil? Spiritualist tradition suggests that there is a residual energy in the body after death, a kind of cord that binds spirit to matter. This bond can gradually dissolve, allowing consciousness to follow its path. But what if the fire interrupts this process prematurely? Some mediumistic reports indicate that souls who have undergone early cremation have felt a sense of anguish and bewilderment, as if they had been abruptly pulled from one reality to another. On the other hand, there are traditions that see cremation as a means of liberation. In Hinduism, for example, it is believed that fire purifies and helps the soul to free itself from the cycle of rebirths. But what differentiates a peaceful transition from a disturbing one? Is it the spiritual preparation, the time allowed, or the acceptance of death itself that dictates the experience? What we do know is that spiritual experiences vary, and the way we say goodbye to the body can have profound effects. Edgar Cayce warned about the need for respect and serenity at this time, stressing that calmness and prayers can make the crossing easier. If this is true, how can we ensure that those we love have a peaceful passage? Is there an ideal time for this separation? Now I leave the question to you. Do you believe that cremation can influence the fate of the soul? Or do you think that the spirit takes its course regardless of what happens to the body? Share your opinion in the comments, as your thoughts can shed light on this discussion and help many to better understand this great mystery. Death has always been one of humanity's great mysteries, and the way we say goodbye to our loved ones can influence our perception of this moment. In many cultures, funeral rituals are seen as essential to ensure a peaceful transition to the spirit. But what happens when these practices differ drastically from one tradition to another? Cremation, an increasingly adopted method, is accepted by some religions as a means of purification, while others consider it an impediment to the continuity of the soul. What does this mean for the departed? Is there a universal truth, or does it all depend on the beliefs of those who remain? Spiritism, widely disseminated through the teachings of Edgar Cayce, suggests that the soul can maintain a connection with the body after death. According to mediumistic messages received over the years, the way the body is treated can influence spiritual detachment. Some spirits have reported suffering when they were cremated prematurely, feeling the abrupt breaking of the physical bond before the ideal time. If this bond still exists, could cremation intensify the spirit's anguish? Or does this experience vary according to the preparation and evolution of each consciousness? In traditional Christianity, especially in more orthodox Catholicism, cremation has historically been discouraged. The belief in the resurrection of the body on the Day of Judgment led to restrictions on the practice for centuries. However, in recent years, the Church has come to accept it, as long as the ashes are treated with respect and not scattered in a profane manner. Christian orthodoxy still views this method of farewell with reservations, while other modern Christian denominations see no problem with it. So, how can we explain this change of perspective? What really happens to the soul at the moment of cremation, according to these traditions? Hinduism, on the other hand, embraces cremation as an essential part of the cycle of rebirth. According to the Vedic texts, fire has the function of purifying and accelerating the passage of the soul to another life. Hindu funeral ceremonies include mantras and rituals that help the spirit to free itself from matter without suffering. But does this view apply to all spirits? Or can the experience and acceptance of death make a difference to the experience after cremation? In Judaism and Islam, cremation is seen as a forbidden practice. Both religions hold the belief that the body should return to the earth as naturally as possible, without any drastic intervention. In Orthodox Judaism, cremation is believed to be a transgression of the divine cycle of life and could jeopardize future resuscitation. In Islam, rapid burial without chemical intervention preserves the dignity of the deceased and allows the soul to follow its destiny according to God's will. But if the spirit is immaterial, to what extent can what happens to the body really affect its journey? What do you think about these differences? Is cremation just a material ritual, or can it actually influence the soul's transition? Share your opinion in the comments. This discussion goes beyond individual beliefs and touches on the heart of a fundamental question. What really happens after we leave? Death has always carried an air of mystery, but what if some post-mortem signs were trying to tell us something? Many people report unexplained experiences shortly after the cremation of a loved one. Strange sounds, objects that move on their own, a sense of presence, and disturbing dreams are just some of the manifestations described by those who have decided to follow this funeral path. But what is really going on? Are they just projections of grief or evidence that the soul has not yet completely let go? Edgar Cayce, in his mediumistic communications, received messages from spirits who had gone through disturbing experiences after having their bodies cremated. Some of these souls reported a state of confusion, as if they were still attached to a material remnant that quickly disappeared. When I realized it, my earthly home no longer existed, one spirit wrote in a psychograph. This abruptly severed bond could be the key to understanding the supernatural phenomena that occur in homes where urns with ashes are kept. It's not uncommon to hear stories from family members who, after cremation, have witnessed unusual events. In one such account, a woman claimed that she had felt an invisible weight on her bed every night since bringing her husband's ashes home. In another story, a family reported that lights flashed without explanation whenever they tried to decide what to do with the remains. Could these be signs that the spirit still resists moving on? Spiritism believes that the emotional vibration of those who remain can influence the experience of those who have left. If a spirit is already weakened by the sudden departure, an environment of intense mourning can make their journey even more difficult. This would explain why some manifestations seem more frequent when family members are emotionally shaken. In this context, the question is not just about cremation itself, but about the emotional impact on those who remain. If there is a link between cremation and supernatural events, then what can be done to prevent these phenomena? Some spiritualists recommend farewell rituals, prayers, and even a time of waiting before carrying out the cremation. Giving the spirit the opportunity to understand its new state could be essential for a peaceful departure. But what if the spirit wasn't ready yet, regardless of the time? Could this choice affect the spiritual journey in ways we don't yet understand? Now I ask you, have you heard or experienced reports of strange phenomena after a cremation? Do you believe that the spirit can really suffer interference in this process? Or is it all just a perception influenced by grief? Leave your opinion in the comments and share your experience. After all, what happens after death is an enigma that we are still trying to unravel. Crossing the threshold between life and death is an experience full of mysteries, but one factor that is often overlooked is how spiritual evolution can influence this process. Could cremation only have a profound impact on those who are still tied to matter? Or is it a means of liberation for more prepared spirits? The answer to this question may lie in the level of consciousness that each being has reached throughout their existence. Edgar Cayce often addressed the spirit's transition based on its degree of detachment from the material world. For those who have cultivated excessive attachment to the body and earthly matters, cremation could represent an abrupt break, making it difficult to understand that physical life is over. In his mediumistic communications, he reported cases of spirits who felt confused when they saw their bodies turned into ashes, without enough time to understand their new reality. On the other hand, spirits who have developed a higher consciousness seem to go through this process without suffering. They understand that matter is only a temporary veil and that cremation does not alter their spiritual destiny. In Hinduism, for example, cremation is seen as an act of purification and liberation, helping the soul to disconnect from matter in an accelerated way. Could it be that the way we view death can define the impact of this ritual on our afterlife journey? The belief that the emotional and mental state interferes with spiritual detachment is common in various doctrines. If an individual has lived in fear of death, denying its existence and avoiding reflections on the spiritual plane, their transition is likely to be more turbulent. This may explain why some mediumistic accounts mention troubled souls after cremation. But can we prepare ourselves in life to avoid such turmoil? If this impact really varies according to spiritual evolution, then each of us has the opportunity to shape our own post-death experience. Practices of detachment, self-knowledge, and spiritualization can help us accept the phenomenon of death, allowing for a more serene passage. But do you believe that the way we live directly influences what happens after death? Are you prepared for this journey? Share your opinion in the comments. Reflecting on our spiritual evolution can not only clear up doubts, but also help many people to face death in a more conscious and peaceful way. After all, what awaits us on the other side may depend more on us than we realize. Crossing the threshold of death has always been one of humanity's greatest mysteries. But what if, when we arrive on the other side, we discover that the way we say goodbye to the physical body profoundly influences the spirit's journey? For centuries, different traditions have approached this question in different ways. For some, cremation accelerates the liberation of the soul, allowing it to follow its path without attachment to matter. For others, fire abruptly interrupts a process that should be gradual. But which of these views is closer to the truth? Edgar Cayce shared countless messages from spirits who related their experiences after death. Some said they felt an inexplicable emptiness after being cremated quickly, as if something had been abruptly ripped away. Others, however, said that nothing affected them, as they had already prepared for the transition. This leads us to an even deeper question. Does the impact of cremation depend on the spirit's level of evolution? Does the consciousness, when it disconnects from the body, have full capacity to determine whether or not it will suffer from this process? If we look at it from a psychological point of view, the belief about what happens after death can be a determining factor in the post-mortem experience. A person who is afraid of cremation while alive could feel anguish afterwards, because their mind would still be stuck on the idea of suffering. On the other hand, someone who believes that cremation is an act of liberation can go through this moment with serenity. This means that our own perception of death can define what our spiritual journey will be like. But there is also another intriguing perspective: the residual energy of matter. Some spiritualists claim that ashes retain an energetic imprint of the deceased, which could maintain invisible links between the spirit and the earthly plane. This would explain why some people report strange sensations when they keep urns with ashes in their homes. If this is true, could cremation be just the beginning of a series of challenges for the soul to completely detach from the physical world? Faced with so many questions without definitive answers, you are left to ponder: is the impact of cremation on the spiritual journey real, or are we just dealing with a popular belief reinforced by fear of the unknown? What if the answer lies within us? in our own consciousness and spiritual preparation. Whatever your belief, the important thing is to reflect on how we face the transition to the unknown and prepare ourselves in the best possible way. If you are interested in topics like this and want to deepen your understanding of spirituality and the mysteries of life after death, subscribe to the channel now. Your participation is essential so that we can continue to bring you valuable reflections and information about what awaits us on the other side. Turn on notifications and leave your comments. Do you believe that cremation influences the spiritual journey? Or is this just a belief handed down over time? Let's unravel this mystery together.